I'm going to set it to 4 by 4 by 8 by 8, just to make sure that I don't have any nasty edges here on my logo. And let's go to multipass, and I'm going to export specular. I'm going to export reflection, and I'm going to export, let's see, atmosphere, and enable the multipass. And let's set this to PNG sequence with alpha channel, and this one as well as a PNG sequence. And I'm exporting these passes because most of the things I have here are specular, reflection, and I'm exporting the atmosphere effects for the volumetric white in the background because I want to apply some noise, fractal noise animation on it, like a fog, and I don't want to create this here in Cinema 4D using the noise tab here, because it's pretty flexible and easy to change the noise and animate it in After Effects instead of doing it here, because if I don't like the final result, I'm going to need to re-render the entire sequence and then work again in After Effects on it, and it's pretty slow, so I prefer to do it in After Effects. So that's it for the Cinema 4D part. I'm going to export this. You just need to select your output folder and export the sequences, and since I already did it, I'm going to jump in After Effects and show you how to quickly composite the fractal noise and maybe some basic color corrections. And just remember to set the frame rate to all frames when you are ready to export your sequence. So that's it for the Cinema 4D part. Let's jump in After Effects. Here we are in After Effects with all the passes we exported. So let's take the beauty pass here and drop it into a new composition. And as you can see, this is the animation. And at the beginning I have a pretty long, like 20 frames long interval of only pure white, and I'm going to trim this to start from the first second mark, and I'm going to drop the specular on top of this one, the reflection and the atmosphere effects. And you can see this is the white only. Let's set this to screen, and let's set the specular to add maybe, and let's set the reflection to screen as well, and let's set the specular to 5%. We want just to increase it just a bit, and you can play with the reflection as well. Let's tone it down to 50%, and here is the white. We can increase the white even more if we set this to add, and I'm going to keep it to in add mode, and you can select this and maybe go to effect, color correction, hue and saturation. You can change the color if you like, and you can create some pretty interesting results that way, but I'm going to leave it as my original color. And now let's create a new layer. Let's call it BG for background, and let's drop it here, and let's apply a ramp, and we are going to use a radial ramp. Let's set this point right in the center, and let's, for the middle point, let's choose sort of a dark color from the logo, just to have some color in the background. Maybe increase the saturation a bit, and to avoid like banding or something when you export the logo, you can increase the ramp scatter, which creates something like noise into the ramp and prevents banding. So let's set this one to 100. Let's create a new layer, and let's call it fractal noise, and let's go to noise and grain and apply fractal noise, and I'm going to use the, let's see, dynamic fractal noise. Let's increase the contrast a bit, maybe decrease the brightness, and on the evolution I'm going to animate this and alt click and type time multiplied by 100, which animates the fractal noise. It's pretty simple expression. And maybe go to the transform and increase the scale just a bit. You can increase or decrease the complexity of the noise. I prefer to increase it like to 15. And let's duplicate the atmosphere layer, and we are going to use this one. As you can see, it doesn't have alpha channel, so we are going to use this one as a Woma matte. And as you can see, this is how it looks like. Let's change the fractal noise to screen blending mode and just create some pretty nice detail into the white. If you increase the brightness, you are going to increase the noise, and you can play with the opacity if it's too intense for your taste. But basically that's it. Now let's create an adjustment layer. Go to layer, new adjustment layer, and I'm going to apply Rio Smart Motion Blur on this one and set the motion sensitivity to 50, just to create a nice subtle motion blur. The movement isn't that fast, but at this frame here you can see if I turn off the motion blur, the image is perfectly sharp, and if I turn it on, it has some motion blur, and I like it that way. So I'm going to keep the motion blur, and let's create a new adjustment layer and go to effect, and let's see, blur and sharpen, and let's sharpen this a bit, like 15 or maybe 10. Go to effect, noise and grain, and apply noise, set it to 5 and uncheck use color noise. Finally, you can apply some glow if you wish, but I prefer to keep it that way. And you can animate just a simple lens flare. Let's create a new layer and call it OF for optical flares, and go to effect, video copilot, optical flares, and I'm going to select a flare from the presets here. For example, this one, it's a bit different than the original I used, but I really like it. So let's decrease the scale to 50% and maybe make it a blue color, and set the blending mode to add for the lens flare, and go to frame 8 and set the position of the lens flare here, and set a keyframe for the position and the brightness, and set the brightness to 0 and move 4 seconds forward, and let's move the lens flare to the bottom of the D letter, like so, and hit U to review the keyframes, and set another keyframe for the brightness at 0, and go right into the middle and set this to 100% or maybe 150, and that's it. That's our animation. Let's put the lens flare below the sharpen and the noise, and let me create a quick RAM preview to see the final result. So this is the final result. As you can see, I think it came out pretty good. So that's it, how to recreate the DC Comics logo opening animation. Hope you like this tutorial and find it useful. Once again, I'm Stefan for Tuts Plus, and we'll see you next time.